Thanks everyone for stopping by and welcome to today's webinar, Running Your Business Like a Business, with your hosts, Brian Gubernick, and co-pilots Ryan Melville and Julie Youngblood. Please note this meeting is being recorded and will be available within 24 hours on the MAPS Group YouTube channel. I will share the link in the chat momentarily. Currently, everyone is on mute. However, we do value group participation, so we ask that if you have any questions for your coaches, please type them into the chat box located at the bottom of your screen. Following the meeting, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to FastTrack, FASTTRACK at KW.com. That's all for me, Brian. Take it away.
Thank you so much, Graham. I appreciate it. Julie, remember, this is being recorded. Okay. All right. So, no, gang, thank you very much for joining us. We have a lot to cover in about 25 minutes. So we'll have you out of here before 30 after the hour. It's 9 o'clock here in Arizona. But I know some of you are a few hours ahead of me. So we'll have you out of here in the next half hour or less. This is part 2 of a 3-part series that we're running. Today, we're talking about running your business like a business. Okay. Now, our intention is to give you a few action items from the presentation that we give in the next 25 minutes. Okay. We want you, like, I feel that this is a success if you walk away with 1 or 2 or 3 things that you could put into action right now and change the trajectory of your business this week, this month, this year. Cool. That's the deal. If you don't get that out of us on the minute 28, minute 29, put something in the chat and ask a question. Let's make sure we tackle it for you, because I know your time is super valuable and I want to make the most of it. So let's dive in. When we talk around running your business like a business, now, lots of words on this slide, but I'm a little biased. I think this might be the most important slide of all of them. Okay. Because if we can get you thinking around your business a little bit differently, and it prompts you to make a certain decision today, I'm taking credit for it. I call that a victory. Okay. So let's talk around some of these questions. Okay. Questions to ask yourself. What are you currently measuring right now in your business, Julie? What are these things that you track? Closings, escrows, whatever it may be. I want everybody making this list right now. By the way, snapshot this screen if you'd like. Snapshot any of them if you'd like, but come back to this if you don't have time to complete it right now. So what are you currently measuring? And write all those things down. Number 2, of all the things that you're tracking, which of those things you're tracking do you think are the best indicators of effort? Specifically effort. What metrics are product goal related? So what are they? What of those metrics are results-based lag indicators? And what metrics are what we call process goals? We're going to talk about this here in a moment. Those things that are lead indicators, activity-driven. Okay. Most specifically here, though, what are you tracking for yourself or for your agents that is an indicator of effort? Next, if you're judging by effort, how are you performing right now? Right? We're a few months into the year. How are you performing relative to your effort right now? Now, let's be clear. When we're talking effort, and we'll discuss this a little bit more, I don't mean are you running around from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day because the market is crazy and you're busy. Sure, that requires effort. But I'm thinking more around purposeful effort. You guys all know oftentimes that's built around what? Lead generation. Right? Uh-oh. Sorry. Next. If you have a team of agents around you, how is each agent performing with respect to effort metrics? How are they performing relative to everybody else around them? By the way, what story is this telling? Is it the story you'd like for this year? Is it a story that needs a different ending? Next, how often are you personally reviewing the metrics, the effort metrics and the result metrics? What are you doing as a business owner on a regular basis, or not doing on a regular basis that you wish you were, around the reviewing of metrics and data? How often do you think you should be reviewing this data? And lastly, do your agents, do you know your priorities every single day? And do you know of these priorities, what's urgent versus what's important. So think about these things. Maybe some of you wrote down some answers, or you maybe want to contemplate this some more. I think that when you answer these, no one's going to answer them perfectly or answer them exactly the way they wish they would. Guess what? You can jump off this webinar now because now you figured out what the rest of your day should. No, I'm just joking. Don't go anywhere. Don't go anywhere because we've got a lot to cover. Now, these questions, as well as a lot of others, we address in our coaching program that we're running through MAP. So if I forget to mention it, because I know I did last time, go to getourplaybook.com and you can learn more about what we're covering. We'll talk about that towards the end, but check out getourplaybook.com. So let's jump in. I want to talk around running a business versus running a practice. Running a business versus running a practice. And the best way I can describe this, Julie, Ryan, you're familiar with this analogy. I want to be clear. I love my father-in-law. Man, someone tell Nick Waldner to stop calling me. That is Nick Waldner nonstop. You tell him he's ruining our webinar.
I'm going to text him right now.
Yes, please. So running our business versus running a practice. Okay. So my father-in-law, I love him dearly. He's amazing. I really do. I mean, I'm very fortunate that I have the father-in-law that I have. He's a dentist. He runs an amazing practice. He really does. He's been doing it for years. While I do love him, it's really difficult for me to talk around a few different subjects, the biggest subject being business. And why? Well, I say this as respectfully as I can. He doesn't run a business, he runs a practice. And why do I say that? Well, my father-in-law goes away for the summer every year like he does. My in-laws, my wife, they're Eastern European, so they think that they have to vacation at least 12 to 16 weeks a year. And he does that. He goes beyond that now. But every time he leaves, that practice of his, it shuts down. Revenue ceases to exist. In other words, there are no systems, there's no leverage, there's no other people around him that create revenue while he's out. So as a result, he's very much running what I would consider a practice versus a business. And what would be the business? The opposite. Revenue continues to occur, and maybe the business even thrives more so when you're out of the office than when you're in it. Julie, you've coached and you've talked to an awful lot of agents over the past decade plus. You know some that run practices, you know some that run businesses. What do you think are the one or two things that stand out most in terms of separating those that run business versus those that run practice?
I would say that the ones running a business do focus on lead measures, and I think you're going to dig into that. And they understand how those lead measures impact their lag measures. They can boil it all back down very simply into actionable items or effort metrics for their agents. And I think that they've also run the numbers. They've paid themselves essentially like an agent on their team to recognize how much of their production either impacts or doesn't impact the bottom line of the company. So what I mean is that most of us, and I don't know if you're going to, were you going to get to this? I don't know. Most of us, like I'm a rainmaker on my team, 100% of my production goes to the company. If I were to pay myself like an agent, would I now be a profitable company? And I think that a lot of us don't think like that. And that's what keeps us in the trenches and in practice, if you will.
Yeah, I think that's really well said. And the reason I switched over to this slide was because what you're describing, in my opinion, Julie, is a predictable business, one that you know the direction of, that you know if you leave where it's headed. You're not judging the success of your business on a weekly or monthly basis by whether your account balance goes up or your account balance goes down, which, not to call anybody out, but that is a very common practice in the real estate industry. Your balance goes up, your balance goes down. So I did well or I did poorly. Business owners do not judge their business in that sort of manner. Oftentimes real estate agents do. But what we're really talking about is creating more predictability in your business. Now we believe, and Julie and Ryan and I, we coach to creating this predictability by being more focused around what we would call process goals versus product goals. So what are the differences here? You see it written right in front of you, okay? Product goals is what we as an industry tend to track the most, more than anything else. What are our closings? What's our GCI? And where do I rank in my office or my region or my company? Those are product goals. They are a function of the activities that you're doing. They're a lag indicator. What we believe, though, and what we coach and what we talk about in our training program is to focus more so around process goals. The number of contacts you make, the number of doors you knock. Guys, these things don't require skill. They require effort. Ryan, I have a big idea here, right? The best indicator of success in our business is in the effort applied to creating the business as opposed to the skill level, customer service level, or any other characteristic of successful real estate agents. This big idea, this focus on effort, this focus on the process-oriented goals versus product goals. You talk around this day in and day out when you're coaching agents. What's this mean to you?
Well, when I'm coaching, either a single agent or a team leader, I ask them a really specific question. And if I were to move to your market, right, I'm here in Phoenix, but if I were to move to San Antonio, for example, take my family, move over there, do you have the recipe that I need to follow in order to create success? Like, is there a clear number of doors I should be knocking? Is there a process involved where we can identify what does it take for me to create the business, which is the closings, the GCI? How do I rank high on a team in the region? But oftentimes I get no, right? Like they're not as confident, and we help build that out. We help identify what are those process goals that we can put in place. But look at it that way. Can you take somebody under your wings right now and teach them and coach them on what it takes to be successful? Not just say, go out and get 3 closings a month, but can you show me the pathway to those 3 closings per month?
What you're really talking about, and that's why I flipped over to this next slide, Ryan, you move into a new area, or you have a new agent on your team, or maybe even you look at yourself in the mirror. What we believe in terms of creating more business predictability and in terms of creating a more sustainable business, one that prospers while you're out of the office as opposed to in the office all day, is one that's heavily based around skill versus will. What are we talking about here? Julie, why don't I go to you on this? I don't think I've actually ever put this matrix in front of you, but I think maybe it hits with you a little bit given your reaction.
Well, because when Ryan was talking, I was thinking about will set. If you find people that have the will set, which is the will to do the efforts, the will to do the daily activities, the things they can control, through that, it's the only way you can develop the skill set, right? So you can't show up into my world, not do lead gen, and then expect to get better at lead gen. I need the will set to develop the skill set. And so for a lot of us team owners, we get caught up in hiring people that don't have a will set. They're not willing to do that work. And then they leave because they never got the skill set to convert, if you will, or they never got the skill set to focus on GCI. Or as leaders, we focus on skill set based metrics, right? GCI and closings. And we never tested the will set of the individual who came into our world. The only way to test will set is like what Ryan said, it's to have a plan, right? If I wanted to close 24 deals this year on your team, can Heather Upton give me the roadmap for that? And if I follow that roadmap, she'll pour more into me to develop my skill set, therefore delivering me 24 units. So I don't know, I haven't seen this matrix, you're right, but I am a firm believer that if they don't have the will set, they're never going to get the skill set, and therefore they shouldn't probably be in your world.
Yeah, simply put, what we oftentimes like to say, and we say it throughout our program, it's a function of skill versus will. Give me a guy or girl that's willing to put in the work, and it's my responsibility as a coach, as a team leader, to improve their skill level. However, give me a guy or girl that's highly skilled but unwilling to do the work, and I'll show you somebody that's likely going to end up being a problem for your organization at some point. Why might they be a problem? Well, because they have the skill to overcome certain team standards or certain obstacles in the business, but they're also modeling a behavior, right, that may not be in line with what it is you stand for, what it is you do. As you see in this matrix here, high will individuals that are low skill, they're contributors. And what do you do with contributors? You coach, you guide. It is your responsibility for someone going hard, working their tail off to improve their skill level. That's someone who's a joy to work with, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, a high will, high skill person, that's obviously your high performers, but let's look at the lower portion of this matrix. Low will, low skill, that's somebody that you're going to eject from. By the way, if you're low skill, low will, respectfully, you need to up your game and up your effort, or you probably need to find a different path. Now, one of the dangerous people, though, are the low will, high skill. Why? Because they're potential detractors. Now, we all have individuals like this in our world, business world, or even personal world. Your job, your responsibility is to motivate. Now, here's the challenge with the motivation component of that. I can motivate if I stand over their shoulder. Oftentimes, though, if I walk away, they may go right back to that same will. So why are we talking about skill versus will? Well, we're talking about effort. We're talking about business predictability. We know that if someone's willing to do the work, willing to put in the effort, do the activities, I can predict, if I understand my metrics and understand my numbers, where my business is headed. If I know conversion, if I know my market stats, I know where I'm headed. If I've got a high skill, though, but not doing the work, it's very difficult to forecast where we're headed. Make sense? Does that make sense, Ryan? Julie?
Yep.
So agents that run their business like a business really do these three things. We talked quite a bit around acting on lead measures. The second area of focus for today, though, is on keeping a compelling scoreboard. What this means to us, and simply put, maybe I should ask you, or maybe ask you, you should answer this individually, or maybe your agent should ask this or answer this. If I asked you, are you winning or losing the day? What would your answer be? How would you be answering or determining that winning or losing, right? How do you know? What's the metric? Like literally, I want you to think about this. If the day, when the day ends today, for some of you guys at 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock, and I called you at 5:01, 6:01, 8:01 and said, hey, did you win or lose? Today, just today, what would you say? Would it be subjective? Would it be based on emotion or feeling? Or would you have some hard data behind that? Ryan, talk around this idea of keeping a scoreboard. Talk around maybe what it looks like for those you coach that don't have a scoreboard versus those that do.
First thing is it has to be simple and easy to understand, right? Like there's a lot of complex scoreboards out there that we can pay for, and it digs in a little bit deeper than if you don't have one right now. Open up a Google spreadsheet, get something going, and start tracking those lead measures. Start putting in headers. How many minutes or hours of lead generation did I spend today on my business? Maybe add another column of what type of lead generation. If you're going to examine what's working and what's not working, going back, reviewing this data, saying, all right, I spent 10 hours on prospecting a farm, and I was able to add X amount of people to my database, and I was over here doing this, and I added 0 calling FSBOs. Well, you can shift more of your effort on the ones that are working. But really, the scoreboard needs to reflect the lead measures more than the lag, right? Like closings, appointments, I like to see those on the scoreboard as well, because those are also a lead measure. But closings, GCI, I would save that for another time at this point. Let's just track the things that we're in control of today.
It's really well said. Julie, I'll go over to you. One thing that we teach, one thing that we practice, if we're running a team or we even do it on an individual basis, we believe that you can walk it all the way back to your earliest activity, right? To whatever your lead generation measure is. Oftentimes we default to contacts because that's pretty universal. Talk around how you could determine the entire course of your business just by tracking your contacts on a daily basis.
Well, I mean, obviously through consistent tracking. And by the way, scoreboarding elevates the accuracy and the level of tracking, right? If you've got a team, the agents by nature, we're competitive. Brian, I'm not putting a 0 up there, right? So I will track my numbers just so that I don't have a 0 on the board. What ends up happening over time, right, is we'll figure out, okay, Ryan, for every 52 contacts you make, you set 2 appointments. And for every 2 appointments you set, 1 shows up. And for every 1 appointment you go on, you get a buyer brokerage agreement signed, or whatever the numbers may be. This is what creates the predictability. So Amy, you want to sign 6 BBAs this month? Cool. Let's reverse engineer that. That means your daily contact goal is X. So one of my favorite sayings is, it's not magic, it's math. Real estate is the most predictable business on the planet. And a lot of people will leave it to go get a job where they get paid every 2 weeks. And I'm like, why would you do that when you could get paid every day if you just know your numbers in real estate? And so it's up to you as either a solo agent to make your business predictable for your family who's sacrificing for you to be in this business. And it's up to you as a rainmaker leading other individuals through this business to give them a predictable path that they can control, right? Notice none of these things that we're scoreboarding, these are all within an agent's control. Jennifer Chambers decides today if she talks to 21 people, right? She makes that decision. And that's why the scoreboard is so effective.
And by the way, when you say Jennifer Chambers in your example talks to 21 people, how much skill does that require? It doesn't. But the will to make the calls in that particular method of lead generation is all we're really discussing here. And if you know Jennifer's conversion rates, right, then you can predict where her business is trending. Now, one great thing is when you're tracking this data, if you really want to become a better leader, right? Leadership is coaching, right? Leadership is influence, right? So if I know in this particular example, 21 contacts per day gets Jennifer to the goals that she seeks to achieve, as a coach, I can start asking the question, well, what would have to happen to take that number from 21 to 15? That's when you start to get to have the skill conversation, right? You take the 21 to 15 by improving the conversion rates down this path, right? So we have always taught at KW a lot around the 4 conversations. We actually like to say there's 2 more to be had, right? So the amount of time you spend generating business leads to contacts, and those contacts lead to ads in the database. And it's from there that those ads become appointments and listings and closings. But if you look at the first 2, time spent lead generating, whatever your method of lead generation may be, and number of contacts, however you obtain them, they could be had before those 4 other conversations we're used to having. And those are purely based on will. So when we look at this, and going back to that example with 21 contacts, we can change, we can coach and improve the skill level. One way I like to look at the scoreboard, and we'll end with this on scoreboarding, I think about it the opposite direction, right? In 4 disciplines of execution, there's a story around a scoreboard missing from a high school football game. And when you removed, if I removed in this last slide, if I removed this basketball scoreboard from the basketball game you're attending, what would the energy in that stadium be like? How would the players be acting after the 2nd or 3rd bucket with no scoreboard? Now, mind you, you're not only missing the score of the game, you're missing the quarter or period of the game. Is it the 4th quarter? Is it the 2nd quarter? How much time is left in that quarter? How many fouls do I have? How many fouls do I have before I foul out? How many timeouts do I have left? Guys, I know we're talking about a basketball game, but all of this is applicable to a business, not a practice, but a business. A business knows where it stands at all times and knows what it's going to take to win and knows what it looks like to lose. And what we always say, what Ryan says all the time, Julie says all the time, you don't have to win every single day. You just got to win enough to get me to the playoffs. And if you get me to the playoffs, Ryan, I got a shot at what?
The championship, the ring.
I got a shot at the championship. If you've got 30 days in a month and you go 17 and 13, I prefer you go 30 and 0. But if you go 17 and 13, 18 and 12, 19 and 11, you're probably getting us in the playoffs. And if you get us in the playoffs, we got a shot at that championship. And if we're going to translate that into business language, what we're really saying is you got a shot at hitting that goal this year. Make sense?
It does, Brian. I just want to add here, if you look at the scoreboard that you're looking at on the screen, it's really basic, going back to what I started with, right? Like on the bench, the coaches know how many free throws with the free throw attempt for each player is. That's not on the scoreboard, right? Like if that was up here, it would get confusing to the players, to the audience. You look up, you see, am I winning or losing? How much time is left? And am I going to be leaving the game? How many fouls do we have? It's pretty basic at this point.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
That's a really good point.
Good point.
So guys, I want to wrap up. We got 3 more minutes. Julie, what didn't I talk around today in the 25-minute quick hitting, running your business like a business? What's something I should have mentioned that I didn't mention today? What comes to mind? Anything?
Yeah, I would say that accountability, all of this thrives in an accountable environment. And I think where a lot of us get caught up is having accountability conversations with our people. And we think that it's mean. And I want you to just switch your mindset on that. Accountable people love accountability. Accountable people love accountability. So Brian, if you tell me it takes 21 contacts a day for me to hit my goal, and we have that conversation together, and I do that, and you never talk to me about it ever again, I'm a high will, ready to build my skill individual, and I will leave you. I will leave your organization because you didn't hold me accountable and I was achieving, right? So remember, when you don't have these conversations with your people, what you're really doing is you're keeping the folks who want to fly below the radar, right? No accountability conversation means you get to keep people that don't love accountability. High accountability conversations means you get to keep all those people that you say you want in your world, right? So just remember that accountability is kind. Accountable people love accountability. You'll lose all the wrong people. And by wrong, I mean the ones you want to keep if you don't have accountability conversations.
I love that. And that's a great tie out to this. Guys, if this makes you, some of this conversation around identifying what you're tracking, or more specifically, what you're not tracking, some of this conversation around less subjective analysis and more objective, some of that conversation around accountability and scoreboarding, if it makes you uncomfortable, good, it should, because that would mean that you potentially are running a practice versus running a business. And so we're challenging you to implement 1 or 2 or 3 of these things today and start changing your business and its predictability. And to me, predictability is pretty synonymous with running a business. Okay. So in conclusion, guys, I mentioned getourplaybook.com. We run a 20-week program that covers this material and a heck of a lot more around running your organization, turning it into a business, or if you do truly run a business, doubling or tripling down on that and maximizing your success. And the way we gauge success is by net income. Okay. I care a lot more about efficiency and income than I do about GCI and numbers on the ranking scoreboard. Okay. So go check out getourplaybook.com. And by the way, if you sign up this week, our boy Ryan Melville here is going to offer up a 20-minute coaching session for anybody that signs up this week. And there's a lot of time left this week. So Ryan, I don't know if we actually calendared out what this may entail for you, but let's roll the dice and see where it lands. 20-minute coaching session with our head coach, with Ryan Melville, who drives our implementation program that you can read about at getourplaybook.com. Cool. 30 minutes after, guys, I appreciate your time. Thanks for hanging out with us. Love seeing a lot of you guys. Hope to catch up with you on our next session. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. We'll have the recording up this afternoon with the slides included. Great job, guys.
Thank you.